Welcome to the Goldwater, folks. This is
Howdy, y'all.
Nothing to Declare. Burdock here, along
And
with
Phil.
we are back. Not on YouTube again. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on. That seems to be so we've got a little under 3 months to get back on. We're going to have a special show, get some fellow folks across the internet that have been banned as well, and put together a special show and see if we can't. We'll have a competition to see who can get banned in the shortest period of time. Over nothing, though. I mean, over nothing. So it's going to be like a running competition. And I'm already talking to some folks, some of the gun folks out there that have been banned, and I don't know. There's a couple that have just gone on over to different networks, but I'm chatting with some of those folks, and somebody has suggested that they might be able to throw in a gun as a prize, which would really irk people to give a gun away. So we'll have to figure that out. Maybe we'll do ammunition, something controversial, something we shouldn't be doing. We're talking about guns. Obviously, is another one. I was just watching this YouTube channel out of the blue, and this guy, he's from Tennessee. His name is 22 Plinker, and this guy, he's a trick shooter. He's a competitive shooter, and he's amazing. But he's the most innocent guy. He's just down to earth, and he's got this really kind of kooky sense of humor, but you could just tell that he's just, he goes to church. He's got nothing wrong. That's what he does for a living. He's incredible with a rifle and handguns, and he typically shoots small caliber guns. Well, he got banned a while back, and you could never imagine the guy angry, but he got on one of his shows, if you look for it, and you look at it, I mean, there's just the guy is shooting playing cards and balloons and aspirin off of balloons and things like that. But not good. So anyway, the bans continue. But we are on Twitch. Hello, Twitch. Thank you for being there for us. And we do have a video game, I don't know, that you'll see on Random with Diana and Jim. They talk about the video game over there. So anyway, yeah, we're going to be talking more about getting banned and things like that, but of course we can't ignore what the significance of, well, it's 9/11 here in the Philippines, so it's just a few hours off, a couple hours for you all on the East Coast for 9/11. So I think it'd just be appropriate, a little moment of silence here. Remember the fallen, the firefighters and all who lost their lives and as a result of 9/11. Okay, so we had a busy news week. I mean, anything you want to chat about 9/11? Some
Well,
mind, aside from maybe it didn't happen. No, that's a bad joke.
No. What's speaking on my mind regarding 9/11? Just was thinking a lot about the 1990 speech from George Herbert Walker Bush, September 11th, 1990, the New World Order speech. And, I honestly don't think that George Bush Jr. knew what was on the plate that day. But I don't think he was in charge of the country. I think that the people who used him as a puppet were certainly possibly in on it. Yeah, I do subscribe to the possibility of like an inside job or whatever kind of operation. That, another thing that blows my mind, you had the early 90s, we go to Iraq. Why? Because a Kuwaiti princess pretended to be a nurse while working with a U.S. marketing firm, and formulated a completely false story.
Yeah,
The babies in incubators never happened. That never happened.
That was a pretty stupid maneuver. I mean, to try to even get away with
but
that.
But it worked.
Yeah, well,
it worked.
Yeah.
So a decade later, they're like, hey, let's just make up a story and invade Iraq again. And they did.
Yeah.
The fact that we're still in an unwinnable war in Afghanistan, which, what does that accomplish? I mean, yeah, I know, the opium trade, you know?
Yeah.
Did you know that Hamid Karzai, there were American businessmen in talks with Hamid Karzai about an oil pipeline through Afghanistan. Then we put him in charge of the provisional government. He, coincidentally enough, his brother's now dead, but at the time he was the biggest opium lord in Afghanistan, which produces 80+% of the world's, opium that's processed into heroin. And what I want to know is, could Al-Qaeda get this much C4 from Afghanistan to New York? No. Well, then how come tons of heroin get here? How does that happen?
Yeah.
The same way as Vietnam, likely,
Yeah.
sewing it into dead soldiers' bodies in some cases, I'm sure.
Yeah, if there's money and motive, the one thing that really gets me though a little bit is when I think it's healthy for everybody to have a different point of view, and if there's something that you're seeing that's going on that's not quite right, and even though it may seem ridiculous to other people, you got every right to pursue it, and absolutely should. But some of the ones that I've heard that really just don't make a lot of sense simply because logistically they would be really, really hard to pull off is, for example, the explosives already being in certain buildings.
Well, you know about that group Gelatin, the international artists who were in the towers for years? They lived in there. They put a balcony on the 19th floor without anybody noticing. Like for 19 minutes, it wasn't the 19th floor, but on a floor up on the World Trade Center, for 19 minutes they built a little balcony and had people step outside the window. And this is in like 99 or 98 that they did this. Yeah, from 97 to 2001, there were artists living and doing things, and nobody, they would have had to have gotten a permit for that kind of, but they were given permission to live and work.
So you're
in
suggesting
the towers.
that this group...
I'm not suggesting that they did anything. I'm just saying that,
right.
The fact that evidently security was lax enough for them to build a balcony on the side of the building, and they had a helicopter drive by and take pictures of each member of the art troupe step out on the balcony. Gelatin. They're called Gelatin. And the other group was E-Team. And their whole art project was called The Bee Thing, which, I don't know, some people have said, explosives team? Gelatin? You mean like explosives?
Right.
But
are they doing that in every single one of the towers? And the ones that people were really concerned about, that the argument were the other buildings aside from the North and South Tower. So, people say that all of them were rigged. People say that just the other ones were rigged because they didn't have a direct hit. I just submit to you that
it was a rare event. This thermal expansion thing. This is a rare event. Meanwhile, before it happened, though, one of the police chiefs or whatever said, "Well, we expected it was going to come down." How did you expect it was going to come down? It's a rare event that they just discovered afterwards. Because that had never happened in history where a building just,
But the very idea that... just think of the logistics.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of detonation cord that's required, the miles and miles of...
And it would have to be, it couldn't
of,
be across another wire that some electrician's going to be like, wait, what's this?
You're talking about... and the very fact that maybe that was put in the 90s, okay? Early 90s, mid-90s, doesn't matter, years, hiding all of the detonation cords or getting radio frequencies and transmitters and the amount of explosives and the number of people that's required to put in and place explosives in a building so that it comes down the way that people are saying, and doing it all while the building is occupied is impossible for somebody not to know or be suspicious about what the hell's everybody in the building would have to be in on it. It's like the idea of chemtrails, you know, that all commercial, that everything that flies by that makes a contrail, okay, is a chemtrail. And it's like, do you realize, first of all, if that's all chemical, where do you store it? You know, I mean, how do you, well, it's all being put into the gas. Well, okay, but now the engine manufacturers, Rolls-Royce, has to be in on it, because if you're putting stuff in jet fuel, they need to know about it. You know, I mean, it's so these. It all sounds fine and good until you take a look at the real logistics of it. Maybe somebody would want to do it. Maybe they're trying to do it, but actually doing it is a different thing, just, you know, by certain things. Like,
what do you think about the Odigo messenger service? The Israeli, like an Israeli version of like ICQ, I guess, would have been comparable at the time. It was a messenger service used by Israelis, 2 Israelis who were working the World Trade Center. 2 hours before the attacks, got a message saying there's going to be an attack in the World Trade Center, don't go to work.
Yeah, and
like,
there's, you know what? There's some certain, and
there are
reports,
you know,
in
nobody, you know, they don't know who sent it, and it might have been a joke. Wow, really? That's what you're going with?
Well, there's also reports of kids who were in private schools being pulled out, who were in the area or near, you know, and being pulled out of class.
You remember when
Jewish
the ATF
kids
decided not to go to work that day? When like the whole purpose of the Oklahoma City bombing purportedly was to revenge the deaths at Waco by killing the ATF and some kids as collateral damage just to make things even, right? Well, they got the kids as collateral damage, but the ATF didn't show up to work that day. They just decided not to go to work that day.
I mean, you got to wonder how, because there are training exercises, there are field exercises. These guys they're field people, most
Speaking
of the ATF
of training exercises, you know about the recording where somebody over the is this a training exercise or is this real world? Because they had planned, like, evidently sometimes they would run some ops where they would have make it look like a plane, like, you know, dummy the radar or whatever, make it look like a plane was heading to a building or something.
Oh no!
To see how they could handle that, but yeah, they actually
hijackings are so rare that when you had them, when it came over on the FCC, when they got a hold of that, and you hear everybody on the airwaves, that was a legitimate thing to ask.
Right, yeah,
because
but
it was so shocking, it was so rare to have a hijacking on U.S. soil that, I mean, you're talking about
exercise of that sort that day, though.
I'm sure they do. I mean,
that's what blows my mind. The fact that,
but I mean, it's what I'm saying is that would be the first thing you would expect to hear somebody after, you know, you probably got 50 people on those airwaves that are going to be saying something at one point or another. And I would expect to hear somebody say, is this training or is this real life?
Right, yeah.
In fact, the military people asked that as well.
Yeah, well,
if you look at those transcripts,
the Charlottesville shooting and several other incidents, there was a Department of Homeland Security active shooter drill on the same day in the same cities as a couple of the, you know, it is weird. It's like, you know, you got one job and you showed up in the right city on the right day, and you missed that. You were having your fake shooting while there was a real, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, there's always, I mean, it's always curious. So I guess the best way to do it, if you were really to look into it, I mean, the false flag stuff is to study every single one of them. So I'm sure there's one going on in Topeka, Kansas right now. Okay. There's probably 8 going on right now, today. Training exercises of some sort for some schools, for some, you know, some government agency. Someone's got some drill going. We can't ignore that there
Right.
might be, that does happen. But and then run the numbers from that side of it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, always interesting to get into it. Yeah, try to see every angle of it. I mean, noticed some of the polls going around today. Is they've even got Robert Mueller on the list responsible for 9/11.
Well, he was the head of the FBI. Who
you got Mossad. You got what was the last poll that I saw?
You remember what was one of the last things that Donald Rumsfeld did before 9/11? Oh, we lost several $1 trillion, guys. You know, you remember that, right?
There was
and then the next day, it's like, by the way, who's worrying about a few $1 trillion that just mysteriously disappeared from the defense budget? Now we need trillions more because America's been attacked.
I mean, but then I guess you could say, okay, that's to cover up a theft. Right. Well, I mean, there's got to be, like, if there's a conspiracy, you're going to have, like, okay, maybe everybody got together and said, well, here, I've got a good reason over here. And,
right,
well,
exactly,
we hate Americans.
Right,
and so,
yeah.
But then you've
supposedly,
got
like,
a ton of people involved then.
When the World Trade Center got hit, a lot of the stuff that was related to that missing trillions of dollars, those files are gone now. They blew up in that building. Yeah.
Wait a minute. I mean, you're talking about a GAO. The GAO is not in the World Trade Center.
Oh, no. I'm talking about the accounting office. I mean, here, let me see if I can find something on this.
I mean, anything of that nature is going to be in a government building, and the World Trade Center certainly isn't that. You might have had people managing the money over there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But there should be a record of just like, that would be your broker.
Excuse me, accounting offices in the Pentagon. Duh, yeah. See, the reason why I was saying that, though, is because for the most part, it was the wing of the Pentagon that they were working on. They were already renovating that side or whatever.
Well, there's not just one thing that happens in there, in that area. There was, I'm very close with somebody who was supposed to be in the Pentagon that day on that side of the building, and he has nothing to do with accounting. So there's a bunch of different places on that side of the building. I don't think that. I mean, I think you would just be. I don't know. I mean, to me, plus I don't think that. I mean, of course, there's going to be a lot of computer equipment in the Pentagon, but something that is, I don't know. Would they
accounting offices in the Pentagon were blown up, and accounting offices based in New York building in the World Trade Center were demolished.
But then again, you're going to bring down the World Trade Center. You're going to be crashing a plane into the White House to cover up a financial crime.
Well, they didn't crash into the White House.
They've confirmed that the plane that went down in Pennsylvania was supposed to be, that's their target. I mean, what else are you going to do if you're after the Pentagon, the White House you're going to
right? Yeah, I mean,
slam into the White House.
If it was,
no, it was confirmed that was their target.
I'm just saying if it wasn't a false flag, if it was an inside job and it was a false flag, then of course. Like they confirmed it. You know who Site Intelligence Group is? Rita Katz with Site Intelligence Group. When the CIA and the NSA and the NRO and nobody could get pictures of bin Laden, this private company, this nonprofit, who happens to also have several $1 million contract with the CIA, were the only ones to find pictures of bin Laden.
Well, they're not government employees. That's
right. Yeah,
I mean, that's a start.
The real spies couldn't get a hold of bin Laden, but they could. They had him. They found him. You know.
Sometimes that happens. You need a private firm that's got some motivation, money. I mean,
and
a lot of
connection to Blackwater. You remember this video, the beheading that looked like it was done in front of a green screen? That was brought to you by Site.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the green screen, I mean, that would suggest that that beheading was done in a studio?
Possibly, yeah.
A
Says
studio,
some people believe that that was the case. Yeah.
like in Kubrick's basement? Is that where, is that where we're going here?
Well,
right.
let's see. If you look into the site group, which is of course connected to the Rand Corporation, you know, I don't know. I'm highly suspicious of anything that comes out from them. They're the ones that brought us the picture of Bin Laden. Have you seen the picture of the Bin Laden guard with the water gun? It is a water gun. It is a water gun.
I probably have. If it's a Bin Laden picture, I've probably seen it. I remember something about this years ago.
A water gun. Why did Bin Laden's guards have a water gun?
Who knows? Are you sure it's a water gun?
It was yes.
What was the purpose of the? You're suggesting that they assembled these people?
I don't know. I don't know. I do know that I don't trust anything that comes from sight.
Huh. Well, I think anyone that would have the time and money to assemble lookalikes, they would at least have the money.
You'd think, right?
Get a real gun.
Right, exactly. That's why.
I mean, it's not that hard.
You remember the guy that did the
unless you're in France,
the Egyptian Christian guy that did the anti-Islam movie, and they blamed that on Benghazi. You realize that nobody there knew about this guy's movie. That guy, by the way, had ties back to Israel and was about to get fried on some kind of financial scam or something that he was involved in. You know,
No, the whole thing about the movie was that was just Benghazi is a totally
complete pretext.
Benghazi has to do with theft. Okay?
Right, yeah.
That's theft.
And that whole movie deal, that was the pretext.
That's basically
look,
somebody. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it is so obvious what happened there. They had the guy tied, you know, obviously because of Lockerbie, and despite the fact that the Centex did come from the United States and was sold to Libya by a CIA officer. That's true. And so he certainly, Reagan went after him and he was a legit target. Everybody kind of mellowed out after that. But it would be very easy for somebody to come in, kill him, and take all the gold that the country had, because the guy, he actually did have a very good understanding of economics, and he had a real plan to transform his country and northern Africa, and start with irrigation and do some incredibly, prosperous things, despite everything else everybody says about him. And so there's a reason there to kill him. I submit that the reason that Clinton killed him is because of the gold. And it's gone. It's gone. They killed him, and all of this stuff went missing. So I don't think. I mean, that's a pretty easy one.
I think
it was a conspiracy.
I think that generally in stuff like this, there are kind of like with the Kennedy assassination. There were multiple parties with multiple impetus.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there were so many different reasons that anyone could want to kill them, and maybe there was a meeting and said, "Hey, listen, I mean, we're thinking about taking the guy out." Pretty much everybody in the group says, "Hey, well, I'm not going to have a problem with that. I'll pitch in." But I don't think that the people in that room knew anything. I mean, they just paid for it, and somebody else did it.
Right? Yeah.
And who's good at killing people? I mean, you got the CIA and the mafia. So, and to say those two haven't
had a cozy connection for at least
they've brushed shoulders,
at least as long as the CIA has
But the way you do that is you delegate it out, and somebody's going to do it. Somebody, and you don't want to know about something like that.
Right.
Seriously, everyone in that
compartmentalization is key.
Yeah, you don't, because you're going to end up getting Arkansas. But Lexi's got a new article out. Just actually, finally, we had a little issue putting our articles up this morning. There was a little bit of a delay. Sorry about that, folks. But Lexi's series, the Body Count series number 11, is just out just now, hot off the press. And she's talking about Suzanne Coleman, who is another rape victim and a person who was pregnant with Bill Clinton's child. This is presumably, or I would say allegedly. And another person finds, turns up dead. Verdict, suicide. But woman's found with a bullet hole to the back of her head. I don't, really? You're going to do that? Maybe it was a ricochet. Could be. All sorts of really weird things. Guns act in really strange ways. People shoot themselves on suicide 2-3 times. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, do check out the Clinton Body Count. It's on the whole series is on the top banner there on our header. You can see Body Count. That's a great series Lexi's doing for us, and we appreciate her work on that. So maybe just run through some of this news. Wow. Okay, Germany. Man, Germany's going off. It's crazy. I think it's going to be a little. I'm kind of cringing because these guys are throwing one up for the big guy over there.
That's illegal there. That's not, and it's not. I'm jaywalking illegal. It's your lawyer who defends you also goes to jail. Illegal.
I bet it started out with one guy.
Man, right?
But it's like this one guy looking around like this, and then. It's
proof
snapping a real quick one.
There's a breaking point, people.
Yeah.
Everyone has a breaking point, and Germany and Sweden are finally, after years of this, Germany and Sweden look like they're kind of finally. They've had enough.
I hate to say it. I think it's actually kind of hurting the whole deal whether you like the guy or not, whether you think what he did was right or wrong, you should have enough sense to know that in this day and age, if you want to get something done, you probably shouldn't mention Hitler.
Right, yeah.
In this world.
Even the Beatles.
Whether it's right or wrong, whether you believe in it or not, just be sensible about it, folks. Tone down the shirts, throwing up one for the big guy.
In the song Revolution, the line, if you go around carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't going to make it with anyone anyhow. Well, it's the same thing with Hitler.
Yeah. Just be realistic.
When you come out and say either Stalin did no wrong or Hitler did no wrong, you've just alienated a lot of people,
it shows kind of a lack of situational awareness in the world. So, tone it down, folks. Get your point across in a different way, please. So, it's unfortunate. I hope that the opinions that these folks have regarding immigration aren't discounted because of that. And there's a real danger of that. And of course, I'm not one to say, violence doesn't solve anything. Just Antifa should be the people known as the violent guys. Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying if one of these guys comes up to you and throws a punch or throws a bag of feces in your face that you shouldn't, really. There's only so much.
I've seen what was it? I saw something the other day. There was some kind of riot situation and they're throwing things, the Antifa. Well, no, it's not violence that they're perpetrating. It's an active expression of speech. Wait a minute. So you're saying that hate speech is literally violence, but literal violence is speech? Okay.
Yeah.
I get it now. It's completely arbitrary and whatever you say goes.
Whatever
See,
works.
Why didn't you just say that in the first place?
Yeah. The bottom line is that the real deal here is that if it does come to war, and I mentioned this before, is that's why the Second Amendment is so important. We shouldn't even be having a conversation about the Second Amendment. It is our right. It is, repeal it, put that on the table, or just really go away. But continuing this, wanting to take away people's guns, and but then they're the violent ones that are really trying to have this civil war. And who are you fighting against here? You're fighting against the people with the guns and people who own property, who own significant property. And so I'm sorry, you're going to have to, to beat them, you're going to have to go onto their property where they've got guns. Not really smart. I mean, they haven't thought this through. So yeah, some of this gun stuff that's going on. I noticed David Hogg is out in, he's with who was it? He's teamed up with who's the Fahrenheit 9 Moore, the
Michael Moore.
Michael
yeah.
Moore. Those two idiots are going back and forth this week, and you've got these guys that are really getting jacked up on this David Hogg stuff. And I came across one, and it's pretty rare that I actually comment in Twitter, but I happened to be in last night, and I just couldn't help myself. This guy said, it was talking about semi-automatic weapons being designed for mass destruction, and they get these words like high-powered, semi-automatic. If they refer to semi-automatic weapons that are automatic, but they say semi-automatic.
A revolver is semi-automatic.
A double-barrel shotgun with a single trigger is a semi-automatic weapon.
Does it fire every time you pull the trigger? It's a semi-automatic.
That's correct. Yeah, so absolutely insane what these folks are trying to do.
Wouldn't that make a musket technically a semi-automatic?
If you had a double barrel, no, the idea is that it would have to repeat at least once.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So,
yeah.
So
if it's not a muzzle loading musket, if it's not a muzzle loader of some sort, then chances are it's a semi-automatic weapon.
Well, no,
every time you pull the trigger,
like
a bullet comes out.
Remington 870, like the pump action shotgun, isn't a semi-automatic because there's something that you need to chamber around.
Right. Okay.
A double barrel shotgun with 2 triggers isn't a semi-automatic because you have to switch triggers. But a double barrel antique shotgun, which on one pull puts the firing pin on one chamber, and then on the second pull, it does the second.
Yeah, gotcha.
If it's got one trigger, that's a semi-automatic weapon. So revolvers, and of course, anything that fires more than one shot without it needing to do anything more. But the fact is that that's never going to be understood. It just sounds bad. Hollow points sound terrible. That's why it's banned in San Francisco. That's why even the cops
haven't they ever seen Taxi Driver?
Well, no.
You know how you make a hollow point, you can.
Well, you can do that. That's not a problem. And some people do that. It's not always a good idea to mess with your ammunition.
Right.
If you like your barrel, eventually some of that's going to come off and it's going to mess your barrel up. But the real reason that you want to be using hollow points or soft nose or low subsonic ammunition is if you're a cop in the city and you need to take out a bad guy and there are good guys behind the person that you're shooting. You want the bullet to stop and end with the person that you're shooting. It's dirty, hairy action isn't always good. Charles Bronson blowing a guy through and to the next block is not what you're looking to do when you're an officer of public safety. Same situation in airplanes. They have special ammunition for airplanes. That sounds bad, it sounds bad. But let's just go ahead and ban it because it sounds bad, despite the fact that using that ammunition is a safety factor. And so let's just ban anything that might even make something more safe. These folks just really don't know what they're talking about. They're just not there. Yeah, that's the same thing with what happened when they started to make regulations on the internet. You had legislators, taking something that they knew nothing about, and boy, did they do it with spam, because that was one thing everybody could understand. They had an email address. Nobody likes spam, so they did the Can Spam Act, and you had a bunch of people who had no idea what networking is, what an ISP is, how email gets from A to B. And you made all these ridiculous rules and then, of course, added everything else into it. Some of the worst legislation ever. And then, of course, when they decided to rewrite it, it got even worse. So, and that's what happened with FOSTA as well. So typically, people who are not understanding anything that's going on, making rules, making laws. I think we need less and less of that. What do you think, Phil?
Right. Yeah. Science. Anything to do with science, and yeah, I see this a lot with, like, for instance, anything to do with kratom. You know, now luckily there are a couple of folks in Congress and in the Senate and the House who actually do have some medical training, are actual doctors who support kratom. But that doesn't stop everyone else who read that news story that was really just an FDA press release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's still a lot of talk. That was really heated up for a while, but I noticed that actually hasn't calmed down. A lot of these topics will just go away.
Yeah.
And I'm still seeing people talking about kratom these days. Maybe we to check back in and see if there's some new news on that. Figure that whole thing out.
There was another band scare. The story. Oh, it's September 1st. It was going to be banned. What a lot of consumers who get scared over this don't realize is they can't ban something. Like, if there's no news about it, it's not going to be banned tomorrow, because you can't make a bunch of legitimate business people all over America criminals in 10 hours. You have to tell people first.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, you've got a week to get rid of your stock.
Yeah.
That's how that when I've
Although
seen certain.
They do have those. Sorry to interrupt there. This happened last week. It was something crazy. Like, what was it? Like 30-some people OD'd on this synthetic marijuana. Did you see that? I think it was in Philadelphia. That was all in one park, and everybody just kept coming into the hospital, and Lord knows what they're spraying on it.
It blows my mind that stuff is still a thing. The fact that, I mean, like, you know how many people have died from marijuana? None.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, since it's illegal, there's people smoking this stuff with a poison made in China.
Yeah.
With it wasn't meant for human consumption. So there's no oversight.
Leftover chemicals and whatever they got left over from whatever process they're making, ammonia or bleach or whatever it might be. I don't know, anything toxic. Just put it in. Will this get you high? Maybe. I don't know. Let's mix it up and spray it on this stuff and send it to the U.S. They'll smoke it. That's what's going on. So I guess the reason I bring that up is that is a situation when you got like dozens and dozens of people ODing on this stuff in parks. It's time to fast track that stuff. I'm not a fan of making stuff illegal, but
the irony
is when you got people.
Reason this stuff is popped up and become a problem is because of certain types of prohibition.
Well, I mean,
people are smoking poisonous fake weed. Because a harmless plant with nutritional, medicinal, and other benefits is illegal. That's
well,
stupid.
I think they'd probably still
dumb.
smoke it because people who couldn't afford weed would buy it.
Oh, that's sad to think of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's smoking pot isn't cheap. I mean, if you ever had a pothead roommate in college, I mean, or just a pothead, somebody who was a daily wake and bake type of guy, it ain't cheap. It's not cheap. I mean, even since it became legal. I went and bought a joint the last time I was in San Francisco. I'd never been in a head shop where you could just go in a store where you could go in and just anyone could buy. So I figured, well, that's I'll check it out. I mean, I've never seen it before. Talk to people, and just it's like an experience.
Yeah.
And it wasn't cheap. I mean, I think that the prices seemed to be. I'm not up on the exact prices, but it seemed to be crazy. Like very expensive. I mean, we used to, like, in college, it was an eighth. You know, you buy an eighth of an ounce, and I can't even remember what that costs, but it seemed to be pretty expensive. I mean, people were spending a lot of money for what looked like not a lot of weed. That's what I know.
Evidently,
And I don't
we got
know this
something
joint.
going on in Twitch chat. I'm trying to get signed into Twitch right now. That's what I've been doing for 40 minutes.
Oh, do we have a caller or something? Oh. Should I be having my cell phone off? I think it is off. Twitch chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to sign in right now.
Let's
That's
see
what
if,
I've been trying to do for like I said, 40 minutes now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, can you put a link to
I changed
us in
the
studio
password
on,
and it still won't let me log
if you
in.
could put a link in studio, in our studio and Slack to the Twitch channel. Yeah, unfortunately, thanks. Unfortunately, I don't know. I'm not really good at monitoring chat and talking at the same time. It's kind of like chewing gum and walking for me for some reason. But, oh, there we are. Let me go ahead and mute this. That would be a problem. And let's see where we are. What do we have? I see a chat. I just don't see people chatting.
Yeah, there's Tony. Tony says some went right back to the park and OD'd a second and even a third time, talking about what we were just mentioning.
Oh, really? Where are you
Yeah,
seeing these?
over here in the corner.
Oh,
now, I'm trying to sign in, and I just changed the password. I know what the password is because
well, you'll have
you'll
have to monitor that because
But-
I'm seeing welcome to the chat room with nothing in it, and there we are. So
because it's letting me log in, and it says log in, and then I have to click the I'm not a robot captcha, and then I'm going to click continue,
well,
and then it's going to tell me this username, the same username that's what it says right there. That's what it says my username is.
We'll get you some technical support after the show here. See if we can't figure that out.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I obviously need to because I'm not seeing any chat. So if you
I
could
try to.
just keep an eye
usually
on
try and do that, but I just
whatever
haven't been
portion
able
you
to.
have working that you're able to see a comment. Maybe keep that open, and we'll try to respond to folks. We do have a phone number you can call if you want to call in. We're going to be maybe 15 minutes left on the show here. We're just going to be doing an hour today. We've got some other stuff that we need to accomplish. Let me see if I can't get a phone number for you all here in the studio. I think we have it pinned. And yeah, that'll be... I was sure we had a... Okay, no, that's a Skype US number. Our call-in line is 775-235-0585. So if you want to call in, say hello. Talk about anything on the Goldwater, comments, anything you're coming across, anything you want us to write about, give us a ring, 775-235-0585, and let us know what's on your mind. We'll be standing by. So, yeah, running back through, got lots of stuff this week, man. Bolsonaro got stabbed. Bolsonaro, I always mispronounce his name, but he's a Brazilian presidential candidate that is right-wing, and he's garnering a huge amount of support. Same thing's happening to him over there that happened to Trump in the U.S. The media is the same thing. The left is controlling the media over there. They're hell-bent on it. They take their cues from the U.S. The Brazilians always do. And that's not to say that they're, don't have a culture or anything of their own, but really, let's just say nobody in the world loves going to Disney World more than Brazilians, okay? Disney World was built in Orlando because of, its proximity to Brazil, okay? Let's put it that way. So this guy gets stabbed, okay? And and it's live on TV. He gets stabbed, and he's in the hospital now. And we reported on it. It's in there. We've got a separate section from Brazil that's marked Brazil. And our European writer has taken over Brazil now. Steve Deller, he's doing a great job there. He's got onto this also, not because it's not only huge news. This is like Donald Trump in Brazil. But we obviously are very concerned being banned from Twitter and having shadow ban or being banned from YouTube, shadow banned on Twitter. All of these things are happening all around, and of course, we're big fans of the folks at Gab. I understand there might be conspiracies around Gab, but we'll get out of we'll leave that alone today. The Gab, what happened is that this guy who's a Bolsonaro supporter is got banned from Twitter, and people really liked him, and he said, well, I'm over on Gab, and like 1 million people overnight, over 1 million people went to Gab. And it's crazy because now there's all sorts of everybody speaking Portuguese in Gab, which is, I think, is great. I think it's if you've got a problem with 1 million people on your network speaking another language, I think that's a good thing. Okay, so hopefully you're not labeled a xenophobe if you complain about it. I'm sure the folks at Gab, give them be patient, give them some time. They'll get it sorted out where folks from Brazil will be interacting in Portuguese, and because it can be frustrating if you don't speak a language and you're speaking with somebody bilingual. Because you really want to follow. It's not because you hate people that speak a different language. It's because you want to figure out what they're saying, and you don't always have time to paste it into Google Translate. So anyway, Steve has been following that, and the folks at Gab are they're really, really good about just following all of this. I mean, they're really engaged. It's like the only other thing that they're more intense about, as far as politics during an election year is soccer during the World Cup. So, I mean, if you've ever been to Brazil in the World Cup or been around Brazilians during the World Cup when they're in it, especially, you know what I mean. The place goes crazy. They just, their whole work is revolves around soccer. If a certain game is won or lost, that depends on whether there's going to be a national holiday. If there's some sort of rescheduling of a game, it really affects their gross domestic product during that period of time. So anyway, they're hardcore going off down there about Bolsonaro, and it'll be very interesting. This morning, we wrote an article saying, the guy's pretty much a shoo-in after the stabbing. You would think the guy gets stabbed, and of course, I woke up this morning and saw or I should say this morning, I saw the AP has an article out saying no, he's less likely to win after he's stabbed, and that just doesn't make sense to me, because I just don't buy that. I really don't. I mean, everybody's more popular after. Look at Reagan after he got shot. Everybody's more popular after you get killed or shot. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking about when I heard this. Was like, isn't this what guaranteed a second term for Reagan? That's
I mean, and even when you take a look, everybody loves JFK because
he got shot, right? Yeah. He would have been just another philandering, lying president.
Would he have made it through? I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot of speculation, but hey. So anyway, but the media is. We were just talking right before the show about when you engage in this type of behavior, and you're the media, and you're telling people what the polls are, what people's popularity is, much like they did with Clinton, saying that Clinton already won, that she already won, don't even for just she already won. Now that is a conspiracy to collude and to try to affect the results of a U.S. presidential election. That is real, and it's right in front of everybody's face. You don't have to be Russian. In fact, I think, if you're, a lot of these reporters are Canadians. So, if you're knowingly involved in something like that, and you're a foreign reporter, I would definitely be a little bit worried about something like that when you get investigated. People should be responsible for stuff like that. But the foreigner should be scared. And I don't care. Call me a xenophobe, right? Which is ridiculous. I mean, we're really xenophobes, right? I mean, this would be hell, right? We're living in a foreign country.
Right.
Put it together, folks. We don't hate foreign cultures. We're not afraid of them. We're here by choice. So, but I think that there should be a fear. I know this sounds terrible.
It's
but
in-group preference. In-group preference, and it's a basic biological imperative. Do you know that if you got two different colored sponges under the ocean and you run them through a sieve, then they will recoagulate, they'll reform, but they don't form a red and blue sponge. They form the red sponge again and the blue sponge again. You know,
okay. Yeah.
That's there's a book called The Lucifer Principle by Howard Bloom, or is it Harold Bloom? I always get those two. One's a literary critic, one's anyways. But yeah, so Bloom writes this book, The Lucifer Principle, that goes into that. And yeah, there's such a thing as in-group preference, and it's an evolutionary adaptation.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Exactly, it's for survival. Yeah,
I think that it makes perfect sense that if you're a foreigner in another country, you should be more worried about committing crime than a citizen.
Yeah,
you should be really, a little more worried. There should be a reason you should be a little more worried. Like, I'm more worried about committing a crime here. I mean, the last thing I want to do is do something wrong here.
Right.
Lord knows what I've seen pictures of, something, we're not getting into it. I'm not going to commit any crimes here, I guarantee you. We're not going to do anything wrong. And that's the way it should be. It really, really should be. If you're a guest in somebody's country, it's like using somebody's bathroom. You're invited over to somebody's house for a dinner party and you use somebody's bathroom. You're not going to leave pee on the lid.
Right.
Yeah. You're not going to. You're going to take a little extra time because it's different than what you're used to at your own house. You're going to be on your best behavior,
right?
Because you're in somebody else's house.
Australia had a new law regarding making agents of foreign influence register their affiliation with some foreign entity, which is not a bad idea. I found it interesting. They were, for a while there, I think they finally decided against going this far, but for a while the talk was, should we make Catholic priests register as agents of foreign influence?
Possibly.
God is they're reporting.
They're
reporting back to the Vatican. They are agents of the Vatican.
That's true.
So they have not Australia's best interest. They have the Catholic Church's best interest.
That's
so they
true.
were considering, should we make Catholic priests register as agents of foreign influence?
I'd be open to it. Yeah.
I believe that if you're, if Brazil or Russia or whoever decides we're going to move to Chicago and we're going to start a U.S. news source, that's, even if it's not suspicious, even if there's nothing suspicious about that, it's suspicious.
Yeah.
By the nature of its very existence, it's suspicious. Like, I'm a firm believer that, you tend to your own backyard,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just also think that if you're taking money from the government and you're getting a tax break, if you're expected, if the public expects you to obey the law, or if you're upholding it, or you're taking a position of moral authority as far as a church, and you've got that argument, but you're actually, as the church, you're not paying taxes, so you're getting a break. You're getting something from the government. Whether you call it a vocation or not, that's your livelihood. So I think that people should be more culpable. They should be, when they do commit crimes, they should have, punishment should double. So, I mean, if a priest molests a kid or a priest kills somebody, it's double. If a cop kills somebody or molests a kid, it's double.
When are we going to invoke the RICO Act?
Well, yeah,
okay, guys, you've been running this child exploitation ring for decades.
It is RICO.
And you're covering up these crimes.
Yeah.
That's, my mom used to make the joke about how, the same thing with the Southern Baptist convention. You know, if you got 3 Southern Baptists who are running a prostitution ring, you know, then you could take all the Southern Baptist ministers to court, invoking the RICO Act. Now that's kind of a silly idea there. In that, you know, we did have a period where there was a bunch of televangelists involved in, but no, that's silly. But no, when you've got an organization, I don't care if it's a church, I don't care what it is. If it's involved in organized child exploitation and is covering up its crimes and aiding in it, and that's what you do when you say, listen, we're just going to move you and not tell anybody why you're new here. That's aiding and abetting. That is they're complicit in these crimes.
Well, I think it shouldn't be any different than if you had a chain of preschools that were involved in some sort of molestation. I mean, you're going to take the whole thing and look at the whole thing. I mean, if you say somebody had a string of 20 preschools across the U.S. and, you know, 2 of them were involved in all of this, you're going to want to take a look at all of them. I mean, that just makes sense. So, as long as it's not kind of like a McMartin preschool thing.
Oh my gosh, crazy. You said preschool, and that's the first thing that came to mind.
But people need to keep an eye on how far it can go. You know, I think a lot of people can learn from, you know, Satan. The fear of Satan kind of went off a little bit in the 80s. I think because it was parents were afraid of the heavy metal music,
right?
And the kids, because I was in that whole group of, like, my parents were, and you're going to listen to some metal, and you're going to have albums, covers and CDs that have, you know, some, or back, you know, you never know. That's like the right between the cassette tape and the CD. I'm talking old school, where your mom or dad's going to come across this, and it's going to be like Motley Crue, you know, oh God, you know, there's Shout at the Devil, all of this stuff, and so they're kind of freaked out, and I don't know, my parents weren't that bad.
I think that a lot of the quote-unquote satanic panic was hysteria, but I almost feel like part of the, I don't know, it wasn't all hysteria, you know? Like,
well, you got kids killing cows and things like that.
Right. The CIA's involvement in the Finders cult. You've got, you know, child pornography, child trafficking, and pictures of these, like you said, weird, you know, rituals with goats and playing with entrails, and then they said afterwards, you know, pulled the classic, oh no, that's just to get a rise out of people. No, that's child abuse, what you're doing there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's some.
You got naked, feral kids with signs of sexual abuse, and then you find pictures of them playing with animal entrails, and no.
I'm sorry.
Then the CIA said one day, and they said, oh, you're going to have to, like, by the way, the kids were put into foster cares, and I saw a news story from, you know, back in the 80s. The foster, you know, the foster homes were getting threatening, harassing calls until the kids were released. And the kids were released back into the care of the abusers because, you know, Customs got involved for a second. It was the local police in Florida, then it was the FBI, and then Customs got involved when they found evidence of child trafficking, international child trafficking. And then the CIA said, oh, this is an internal investigation now. And nothing was heard from these guys again. The kids were sent back, you know. So, yeah, when people, oh, that satanic panic, there wasn't any organized child exploitation. Yeah? Really?
Final thought of the day, maybe, you know, you've got Australia that's wanting to send us their Nauru refugees. What we should do is when we get our orphans over there, we should send our orphans as exchange, because they've got a society that might be a little bit better to grow up in. I mean, especially if they're in LA and, you know, near Hollywood. So anyway, that's the last of it. Appreciate you guys going to the Goldwater. Also, you can go to labvirus.com if you need some conspiracy action. We'll try to update you on Alex Studer. Also, we are hosting again the Story Behind the Story. True is out of the country, and we'll be taking over the hosting chair for him here from Manila. You can tune in at 7 p.m. Friday on Revolution Radio.
West Coast time, yeah.
That's Revolution Radio, and that's 7 p.m. Pacific on Friday. Revolution.radio. Yeah, any other plugs? I think we're just going to say a prayer tonight and tomorrow for the folks that were affected by 9/11, whatever the reasons. A lot of people died, and let's just hope people's best interests are in mind in the future. So with that, this is Major Burdock
and Phil
saying
God
hello
bless.
and goodbye. Godspeed from Manila.